Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. It's Thursday Night Football, so we have Minnesota at the Chargers in Week 8 here, and I have a few changes to cover, but we'll go through those as we see them. So, getting into our matchup, you have the Vikings at the Chargers. You have the Chargers favored on the money line with a spread of 3.5 and a total line of 44.5. So, one of the things I added here is a tight end ranking, both for how well the team does in terms of throwing to their tight ends, like if they favor them in some way, or maybe the team is not as well at defending the tight end versus allowing more passing. So in this case here, right, where Minnesota is second best at stopping the pass, but they do allow more yards to tight ends than other positions apparently, since the rankings should be about even like they are over here. So it's just a breakdown to kind of see if there's more information that we can extract from this. Some of the notable things, as I pointed out, was the allowed passing rank of 2. So they're pretty good at stopping, especially the wide receivers, not as much as the tight ends. Everything else is a little bit below subpar or average. And with the Chargers, you have a passing rank of 7, allowed passing rank of 4, allowed tight end rank of 4. So they're pretty good at stopping the pass in general, both tight ends and just wide receivers. And they're pretty good at passing. And you have your fantasy totals for the team. If you want to look through that, I'll switch these over to the averages. I did fix this too, where these averages are actually related back to these ones. So now you have your team allowed passing average, rushing average, and now a tight end allowed average for the actual yard number, if you need any of that. So here you have your quarterbacks with J.J. McCarthy and Justin Herbert. A noticeable change on these player panels is that I moved the fantasy points up here. So now you get the season totals and the averages for non and PPR and PPR formats. So if any of that's useful, there it is. It just condenses some of this down a little bit. I also changed some of this so that this is a little bit more sensible, so you don't have a bunch of numbers that aren't necessary, and we'll see that more in the wide receiver kind of format. And then I've changed this up a little bit down here so that you actually get something more sensible. I think that this still needs to change for the quarterbacks, but we'll see this being more useful for the running backs. Just a couple notable things for these guys is that J.J. McCarthy has 3 interceptions and 1 fumble lost due to a sack. Justin Herbert has 4 interceptions and 1 fumble for a total of 5 turnovers. Flipping over to their averages if you need them. And as I mentioned, the breakdowns are much more readable, I think, so you can go through them if you need it. Now looking at our running backs with Jordan Mason and Kamani Vidal, with Jordan Mason being a little bit more productive in fantasy and having 1 fumble and no turnovers for Vidal yet. If I move over to your averages, if you need those. And like I said, the breakdown's a little bit more sensible with just the rushing information if they have it. There is receiving information too that I can scroll over for if you need that. And then, of course, I'm trying to fix this up. I don't quite have it correct where it's popping out like it used to. And I do want to reduce this so that if you have basically no percent or very little, you're not even included on here. So it's only the more major, like this 0% doesn't need to be on here. So I need to change that, and I'm going to fix that up so that's more sensible. And then for your number 1 receivers, with Justin Jefferson and Ladd McConkey, with Justin Jefferson being a little bit more productive in fantasy, and switching over to our averages, as well as the breakdowns here if you need them. I guess I have it so that if they have any rushing, this takes over rather than the air share yard here. But we know Justin Jefferson gets quite a large share in his team, and Ladd McConkey over here getting 21.5 for his team. And quickly looking at the number 2 receivers with Jordan Addison and Keenan Allen, both of them having similar fantasy numbers and no turnovers. If we look at the averages for the season, and notably Jordan Addison obviously only has a couple weeks of information, so it's hard to say how he really fits in as much since we haven't seen him all season, but he does still have a pretty large share, about probably 10 to 15% there. And Keenan Allen with 24.8% over here, with the almost largest share over Quentin Johnson. I think actually has the biggest share here. But it's very spread out between those 3 receivers versus on Minnesota, where you have a large share going to specifically Justin Jefferson. And then ending with our tight ends. I think one thing to note is that there's kind of been a revolving door over here on the Chargers with different tight ends. And that might be because they're looking for more production out of their tight ends. Going back to the main screen, we see that they have a rank of 20. So I think they're trying to get more production potentially out of their tight ends, but they get so much out of their receivers, I'm not sure they're going to get much more. But even with the tight ends rotating through, Gadskin gets about 7.7% of the receiving share. Over here with Hawkinson getting a similar amount, 8.7%. So this seems like he's about on par for maybe tight ends. I do want to add some rankings that would tell us where these guys stand with their own tight ends in the whole league. So that might be interesting in the future. So that's it for this game. If you got something out of this and you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future, or what might help you more. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.